It kind of started off on a trip where me and Tristan and Jordan went to see the Deftones. That was a while ago, over a year ago. And we talked about wanting to start a band because things with Secret and Whisper were kind of on a break. Everybody is kind of doing their own things in their lives, and that's totally cool. So we always wanted to start a band because we've been friends for a long time, and we kind of had an idea of the music that we wanted to play, the style. And there was always types of elements with Secret and Whisper that we wanted to add in, but it didn't really fit because it just didn't really suit what we were going for with that band. So obviously, we needed a guitar player. So we asked our friend Dave Ecker, who is also in Secret and Whisper. He's a great guitar player. So we thought we'd get him in it, and he was really stoked on that. So we went ahead with it, and then we actually jammed, and we played Lion and Pariah for about 4 hours straight and crushed a lot of beer, and it was awesome.
Band started just like this, pretty much, drinking beers with the bros. Being like just freshly out of other bands that have done relatively well, we wanted to start something that was like just for fun, and me and Tristan and Ryan would get so blasted drunk together that we always would just be like, hey, we should start a band. Well, it was more like this close to each other's face, like, we should start a band. It was originally going to be a punk rock band because we're all like really huge punk rock bands, but we decided to do something a little heavier, maybe more like Thrice, kind of Norma Jean vein. And I think I wrote just like one demo and sent it around to the guys, and everyone was like, yeah, buddy.
The band formed kind of from the demise of Secret and Whisper, and a few of us still wanting to play music. Some of us were different ages. Some people got married, some people had kids, jobs came out in the way, priorities change when you get older, and we just couldn't do it anymore. So went on the hiatus. The three of us decided we kind of still wanted to do something, always got talked about. I played in bands with Tristan for years and years and years, and we were all great friends, and it just, in some combination or another, we had always talked about starting something, and one day we actually just did it. We had a jam space at my place, all the gear, and just went to town, actually buckled down and did it.
Basically, Dave, Jordan, Ryan, and I have been really good friends for years. We've worked together, played in different bands around the music scene, and we always joked about that if any of our bands ever broke up or fell apart, that we would definitely start a band together. And basically through our love of heavy music and progressive music, we just always joked about how we would start a really heavy band with some melodic influences, Norma Jean, Deftones, He Is Legend, some of the bigger names that we were into. So it all sort of came together when one weekend we took a road trip out to Calgary to watch Deftones and Slipknot, and unreal road trip. And the whole time, my band, Dave and I played in a band called Oceans Apart at the time, and then David moved on to Secret and Whisper. And Secret and Whisper was kind of moving into this phase where some of their members were, getting married and having kids, and the future of the band was uncertain. So we went on this amazing road trip to watch the Deftones and Slipknot in Calgary, and it sort of just solidified everything. We realized that, while all of our bands were sort of on the way out, that we could start this new project, and we were so sort of aligned with, the type of music we wanted to play and what our influences were and what tuning we wanted to be in. And it was the first time we started a band that was like, okay, we're going to be friends first, and no matter anything, talent level, it didn't matter. This was just going to be the core. It was going to be fun. We're going to drink beers. We're going to let it all hang out, be loose, have a good time. And we just wanted to play heavy melodic music in the vein of some of our favorite bands. So
I have really strange influences when it comes to music. Some of my favorite bands, Dave Matthews Band is a huge one, obviously because of drummer Carter Beauford. He is definitely one of my favorites. I like everything. When I was growing up, I listened to everything from Slipknot to Blink-182 to lots of Dave Matthews to drum and bass music to whatever. Obviously Deftones was a huge influence for me, especially from a drumming perspective. Just Abe's approach to playing parts and writing really memorable things. Thrice was another band like that too. Riley Breckenridge was an awesome drummer that way. He always created things that you really remembered. So it wasn't always the craziest, most technical stuff, but it was stuff that, even if you didn't play drums, you could always air drum those fills, and that's such a amazing trait with drummers when you can kind of accomplish that. Just like Phil Collins, he does that.
I'm pretty punk rock influenced. Like I think the first time I ever heard like real music, I was listening to like Silverchair, Frog Snuff was like one of my biggest records at the time. My parents always pushed like really, really Christian bands like Petra, and it was just awful. And like DC Talk and stuff like that. And I was walking through a field, and I picked up this tape and it said "Survival of the Fattest" on it. Someone had like thrown it out or something, and I took it home, and the first song was "California Dream" by High Standard. And when they kick in, just like the speed of it, I was just like, "It's fucking crazy! Like, what is this?" And went to "Justified Black Eye" next by No Use for a Name, and I was just like, man. So I was really, really into punk, and the only punk I could listen to at the time, because my parents would always look for my record collections, was MXPX. So MXPX is a huge, huge inspiration to me. And then a little bit later on, I started getting into like sort of like the more Christian, like hardcore acts like Strong Arm and Zayo, stuff like that. And then one of my friends brought over Deftones Around the Fur one time for me, and that was the pinnacle. I was just like, so you can scream and sing at the same time? So
I'm kind of the odd man out of the band. I kind of draw from a little different music scene than Tristan and Jordan Ryan. I'm a few years younger, and quite a bit younger than George, so I missed a lot of stuff that they did growing up. I never got into the kind of Deftones, Pearl Jam, the grungy stuff. I started because of the pop-punk revolution, and it just kind of followed me through. I really got into death metal and tech stuff and all that jazz, and just kind of I've broadened it up a lot now, but that was kind of what got me started. Nowadays, like my main influences, I look up to Jim Adkins from Jimmy World for songwriting. I think he's probably one of the greatest songwriters going. Dave Grohl, Foo Fighters, Nirvana. I think he's the actual last standing true rock star. There's a lot of good people out there. You talk about Tosin and Animals Leaders. Misha Mansour is another big guy right now.
As far as influences on the record and towards our music, I mean, some of our biggest influences, we always talked about Deftones, Norma Jean, He Is Legend, some of the bigger heavy names in music. A lot of my influences personally are more punk rock oriented. It doesn't come through a ton in the music, but just as far as the rawness of the music and letting things slide, everything from string noise to a little bit of feedback in the songs. A lot of my influences come from Strung Out, Good Riddance, a lot of the old Fat Records and Epitaph bands. Glassjaw is one of my favorite bands, Poison the Well. The mix of melody and heaviness in those bands, for me, is definitely one of my biggest influences. When I play bass, I mean, obviously I can't draw directly from guys like Matt Freeman, from Rancid, or, Mike Dirnt from Green Day. I mean, some of the pioneers of good sort of like dirty bass tone, a lot of tasty licks. But yeah, I would say for the most part my influences probably be Poison the Well, Glassjaw as far as bass, just a little bit of distortion, really heavy on the low end, and really just let the songs speak for themselves. Not to get too busy with the bass playing, but just really hold down the low end and make sure it's groovy and fun.